Hey, morning all. We are live on this. I don't know whether it's sunny or windy or raining or snowing or dreary, sunny-ish day. And again, on a day that we've just been talking about it, we have no idea what's going on in this country. Any day, which doesn't help, I don't think, to the female hormones going on of what is could be perimenopausal, what could be menopausal, what could be thyroid, what could be burnout, what could be like adrenal fatigue, what could just be day-to-day female stress. It's like, you know what I mean? We are sort of bombarded at the moment with everything and not quite sure. So we thought we needed to do a panel and a chat on, because so many women within Sistr have been saying they don't know what symptoms and signs are to do with what. A lot of people hear about menopause, but not many people hear about perimenopause and all the different things to do with that. I'm 43 and I still haven't got a clue really which symptoms what, and am I having a nervous breakdown, am I forgetting stuff because I'm in fight or flight mode for the last year, who knows. So I've got these three amazing women here to join us. So we've got Katy Howell, who is a friend and an amazing businesswoman, and is the CEO and MD of Immediate Future, one of the longest standing social media agencies. She's sort of the pioneer of fucking dogs of social media. But at the same time, every time we've met up in the past few years, she's been very open about what is going on the menopause front and the juggle of trying to deal with that and run a business, and which I think as sisters that there is that work-life balance and being honest about it and not being embarrassed about it. And so to even up the panel and have it sort of relevant to Sistr, actually we want to talk about how it's affecting people and women in Sistr while they work and what to do about it. And then Jemma Brooks, amazing PT, but very much on looking after women to get their confidence back and to balance their hormones, and to get their spark back and do it sort of naturally and bring exercise into it. And then Dr. Alison Grimston, who 20 years working in it, and GP, but very much specializing in hormonal health. And I'm going to read it, develop the hormone success system. So getting that, because that's another big thing, isn't it? Is that people do sort of band-aid it, or do you deal with the symptoms, and that balance of what do you do naturally. And there's so much conflicting sort of advice on what to do, and some people like taking pills, other people go, no, I don't want to take a pill, I want to sort of find my zen and my balance myself. So if we start, if Ali, if you just explain where your passion, because you got into it sort of age 17 after a car crash, didn't you, of sort of not wanting to take the meds, wanting to deal with hormones. So
yeah, well, absolutely. So people often ask me how come I am more in touch with complementary therapies and more natural approaches to health than most doctors, and that really stems from the car accident I had when I was 17, when I broke my back, because I had 25 years of back pain after that. I was on strong painkillers and in Freshers Week. And if you haven't got COVID going on, Freshers Week is a little bit of a piss up. And that did not mix very well. So I actually came to at a party being carried through to the bedroom by a second year medical student. In fact, he had my best interest at heart, but you never know, So I started looking elsewhere for ways to manage the back pain. And I discovered TENS machines, which I'm always recommending to patients. And some, it's not, the thing is with all medicines, whether it's or with all therapies, they're not going to work for everybody. But people expect that you can't recommend something unless it will. But paracetamol is not going to help everybody. I mean, not everybody's headache responds to paracetamol. So why not recommend something that works for some people? Especially if you don't get the side effects you do with other things. So I was always passionate at medical school about gynecology and endocrinology, which is where women's health and hormone health. So to come full circle, I couldn't train in gynecology because of my broken back, because you have to be able to stand to do a hysterectomy. Going through medical school, I had to use journaling to deal with the depression of the chronic pain, Alexander technique. And I now know that my Alexander technique practitioner was actually an energy healer as well, because I didn't know about energy healing at that stage, but I definitely was having energy healing at the time. I used herbal remedies, I used acupuncture, I used traditional Chinese medicine. Those herbs were really disgusting. I used to gag when I was cooking up these concoctions. But in order to get through, I had to use all of these things. And this is where the prescription approach to medicine, where this is the answer to this problem, you've got this one problem and this is the one answer to it, it doesn't actually work, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. And so often the medicines that we prescribe in medicine have side effects. Well, everything can have side effects. All these pharmaceuticals are toxins to the body. And so they are going to upset the liver. They are going to upset the system. And in addition, I grew up on a farm. I'm always been passionate about the environment and the earth. And we can't actually process these artificial hormones properly, and nor can the earth. And that's where you get the situation that you may have heard about years ago with the fish changing sex because of the estrogens in the water, partly due to our contraceptive pills. So that's a little bit of a topsy-turvy approach to how I came to be interested in complementary therapies. I ended up training in general practice because it seemed the most holistic approach at the time and the best chance I had of working with women and hormones. And then I trained in 2013. You may have heard of Catherine Colas, who is a menopause pioneer. She is a friend of mine, and we met up. First time we met up for a meal in Uckfield in my local town in Sussex. She said, well, with your interest, you really should train in bioidentical hormone therapy, because like Davina McCall, I don't know if any of you saw the program last week, but it was really, really well done. And Catherine had discovered that, well, basically bioidentical hormones had transformed her life and her marriage, and she was just a pioneer. She has now set up courses for companies, and she's got a lot of people training under her to become menopause coaches. So she's really got a big vision, as do I. So she suggested in 2012 that I train in bioidentical hormone therapy, and I trained in it in 2013. Now, at last, the UK is waking up, but it's been a slow process. So I have two heads. I feel like I'm two people. When I'm in general practice, I have to follow the general practice rules. So I use the best possible within the general practice rules. I've only got 10 minutes a patient, so I can't even start a conversation about more in-depth things. But I can prescribe the best HRT that's available on the NHS. And I can recommend that people don't do just the HRT. They do the lifestyle change. And really, they need to see a life coach and a personal trainer. And, you know, we need to have a much more holistic approach to our therapy than we do. But because of the National Health Service, which we are so blessed to have, we've all seen that with COVID, haven't we? We're so blessed to have it. But because of it, there's a bit of a monopoly. And because the NHS is free, a lot of people don't even think about going to a paid therapist. But that's what they need to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. But just taking it, just going back, this sort of start at the beginning of the journey. So, Katy, you can tell us, how what you've noticed, like the perimenopause, are like the first, because the signs that you were getting and sort of being able to realize, because that's one of the big things, isn't it? As I said, sort of there's so much going on with us. I'm sort of emotional and brain fog at the moment, but I know I'm not perimenopausal yet. It's I'm in adrenal fatigue and fight and flight mode with the last year. So sort of I'm aware of that, but a lot of the symptoms, there's so many symptoms that cross over so many different things. So what was your sort of the start of your journey and kind of realizing the signs?
So I haven't spoken publicly about this before, so bear with me while I stumble my way through this process. But anybody who knew me pre-menopause will know that I am an utter optimist. I always have 2 tons of energy, run about all of the time, work 70 odd hours a week, typical entrepreneur, business owner, have no problem at all with it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm 55 now. When I turned 53, I started having feelings that I've never had. Extraordinary anxiety, that like filled with self-doubt, which don't get me wrong, I have some self-doubt, everybody does, but I mean to the point where it's almost crippling. And then I started crying all the time. It was just humiliating, to be honest with you. I had to keep running off to the toilets, but I would howl in the shower in the morning. I was trying desperately not to let my husband know that I was totally freaked out. Of course, he could still hear me howling like a in the shower. And then came despair, and I call it despair, not depression, because it would probably last about 3 days. And honestly, even just thinking about it, I feel really emotional about it, because I cannot explain to you how bad this is from somebody who's really optimistic, has never suffered with depression, doesn't recognize the symptoms of what's going on. I just thought I was burnt out. I thought I can't cope with the business. I'm just burnt out. I've been doing this for so long. Maybe that's the time. And then about 9-10 months in, seriously, 10 months of this I went through, my period stopped, and then it started again. And I thought, shit, God, I'm menopausal. So I went to see the doctor, who was, as they do their best. They do their best. And I had 10 minutes, of which they said, you're perimenopausal because your periods have not stopped. And I may be completely incorrect, so please don't take my medical advice. It's what was given to me. You're perimenopausal. I'm type 2 diabetic. We don't want to put you on HRT if we can help it, because it has an increased risk of stroke and heart disease because you're using dual hormones. I'm just telling you what I was told.
Yeah.
But here's a website, a couple of websites you can go and look on. Well, of course, I work in digital, social media. I went and looked. I looked at lots and lots of websites, and got nowhere. Absolutely nowhere, because there are people who don't want you to take HRT. There's people who say you have to do this, you have to stand on one leg. So I kind of cobbled some things together. So I started doing yoga for the first time. We were locked down, and I didn't have to do it publicly. And I have actually got quite good at it and enjoy it very much to settle my busy mind. I decided to take St. John's wort, which has helped with the very severe feelings of despair. Not hugely, but the biggest life change I made as a businesswoman, and and Em knows this, I am a vocal person when it comes to things, was I tell people, so if I have to get my fan out because I'm sweating like a pig in a meeting, I would
when we first met, it was a business lunch and you got the fan out.
I can't do anything about this. I've got a hot flush. And if I don't do this, it's going to last for a long time. So I would tell people, and I also told my leadership team, who were utterly fantastic, because you also suffer from things like insomnia, which is, just variable. So what I was able to do was text my leadership team and say, I'm not going to start work today till late because I haven't slept all night, or I'm not feeling myself, or I'm overwhelmed. And they would pick up around me because I was able to kind of speak what was going on. And I explained as much as I understood about what was going on. I am still, I watched that Davina program, probably like many women. I cried through the first half of it because I thought, oh my God, all these other women feel the same level of anxiety feel. I'm not alone. I feel seen. And then that second half was, I have not thought about, I don't even know if I'm full on menopausal yet because of COVID. So I haven't had a period in a year, but I don't know where I am in this. My doctor has not followed up with me. I don't know what I'm meant to do next. And so I think there's so much confusion that dealing with that while you're running a business through COVID, where you're trying to keep people gainfully employed and take people on and off furlough and manage cash flow and manage your feelings. I haven't got time to go away and be a doctor all by myself. work this out.
Yeah.
And I would say that is, I had no idea what was happening to me because nobody talks about it. I have never met other people till I vocalized it who have the menopause, because nobody talks about it unless you actually put your hand up and say, I'm going through the menopause. And then suddenly a million women appear going, me too. and I think then managing that while you're running a business often with staff who are younger than you, so therefore not in the same place you're in, without sounding like a whinging old lady and not wanting to feel like a whinging old lady, is really, really tough. And I'm nowhere near any place to talk to anybody here today about advice. I can just tell you how I feel.
Yeah. No, but that's great. But that's why I wanted you on as the mix, because it's that I think with women we're so we're having to be the perfect person, and that perfect, especially if we're working as well and you've got kids, it's like we put ourselves on this pedestal to be perfect because that's how we're going to succeed, and it's very hard to go, I need some help if you're that person, and I need this is what, and especially the last year, as you said and as I said, I haven't got a freaking clue what is causing any of my reactions at the moment. I'm just going with it. But Jem, on your especially we're talking menopause, but I think we're combining it with what is going on and has been in the last year and a half, I think is important, because there's so many women I know who are in that. It's not as clear as it was pre-COVID of, is it perimenopause or is it menopause or is it thyroid? It's what's been happening to us, especially women, in the last year and a half is the complete mix. So what have you seen going on in that, and those their symptoms that people have been coming to you with?
Yeah, I mean it's so beautiful listening to Ali and Katy both talk about Katy's experience, and Ali your focus on both complementary medicine and the HRT. So from my perspective, I work with women that will come to me and they're starting to see changes in body composition. So they don't actually realise that they're maybe potentially in perimenopause. They don't even know what perimenopause is. And Ali, you might want to clarify this, but from my perspective, perimenopause can happen for 2 years to up to 12 years for a woman's life. And the menopause is actually just defined as the one day when you've not had a period for 12 months. So the perimenopause is that turbulent time in a woman's life when things are starting to change, as Katy described, don't really know what's going on. You're getting these changes in hormones and you're starting to feel change. I get women that come to me feeling quite fatigued. They're not seeing results from their training that they historically were. So they're not creating muscle mass. They're losing lean mass, and they tend to come, and when I look at how they're exercising and how they might be eating, they come and they are reducing food and potentially trying to work out harder, and it's counterintuitive. It doesn't support with the change in hormones that we are experiencing. Again, Katy, you mentioned it. You managed to tap into your parasympathetic system by doing yoga, and that is massive again. So I work with women, and I work with women that aren't perimenopausal, and I work with women to educate them around, like, literally from puberty to menopause and that spectrum. Because what you will typically find is that a woman might be going through perimenopause and her daughter's going through puberty, and they're two poles of the same thing. It's a house full of,
really well.
I mean, yeah, the emotions and the hormones, because neither of them know what's going on, and it's a really turbulent time. So I really try to empower women to understand what's going on, and I get them to track their cycles. So once we start tracking, and not just tracking how long a period is, but emotional symptoms, energy levels, headache, period pains, there's a plethora of symptoms, hot flushes, tiredness, anxiety. Then we can start to layer training around their cycle, so they are not working at high intensities when they don't need to be, and then they can dial it back to help them understand actually what training hard is. Because when you're going through perimenopause, the absence of estrogen makes it harder for us to then create muscle mass. And each decade, we lose 3% of our muscle mass. It becomes harder to maintain the muscle mass in a decade before. And we need to start creating a stimulus through more of a high intense form of exercise in that perimenopause state to start to act as the estrogen that we no longer have in our body, to support with bone health, for osteoporosis, to help with the predisposition that we can get to kind of tend to store belly fat, which is what a lot of women will come to me with and feel they struggle with. But also it's really kicking into knowing what is hard and what is easy. So it's a complementary of exercise that works for you as an individual, and starting to lift heavy stuff. Now, heavy doesn't mean going and getting under that squat rack. Heavy is heavy for you now. And if heavy is working in body weight, then you start with body weight. But it's very individual. And I see that with every woman based on her symptoms. I have one lady who's gone through the menopause. She was perimenopausal for about 2 years, and then she popped through into menopause, and now she's actually on HRT, and we're working with her, where I've got other women that are in this transient time for a long time. So it changes, and I like women to come with a flexible view, that just because you might think you don't want to do something now doesn't mean to say that in 6 months' time, when your symptoms change, you might change your perception on how you want to support your needs then.
Yeah. And Ali, what have you obviously you've got, a lot of women coming to you. What sort of the biggest symptoms, to look out for, and the ones where you go, well, actually you should, and someone's asked you get a full-on blood test when is that the sort of the way to go to start with?
So my own experience with hormones is that I burnt out at the age of 38, and I really think that was part of perimenopause, although I'm still having periods now at 53, but it can start that early. The adrenal fatigue, all your hormones go completely up the creek in your 40s. Your insulin resistance, your thyroid, I got my underactive thyroid in 2016, and I couldn't believe it when I didn't find out about adrenal fatigue until I started training in functional medicine, which was in 2014, 2015. So that was years after I'd actually had it myself. So if you look at if we do the NHS hat first, let's do the recognition first. So perimenopause is the 10 or so years, and it can vary from person to person, before your periods stop. And as Jem was saying, you get a whole plethora of symptoms at that time. The menopause is only diagnosed in retrospect. It is actually your last period, but you only know that 12 months later, because your periods can become so erratic, and by then you're postmenopausal. So Katy, if you're actually 12 months after your last period, you're now postmenopausal. But these symptoms can go on until you're 90, because you can carry on having, I've seen people still having hot flushes in their 90s. So it's a big part of our lives. The main things that concern me are that the anxiety and depression that goes through your 40s, that goes unrecognized as being related to perimenopause. And it's so debilitating. I mean, for me, I've been paralyzed by anxiety, just as Katy has. The mood swings. So when I was on my supplements, if I ran out, my family could feel the brunt of it in my tongue. You find yourself sort of saying, why did I say that? And as Jem was saying, when we're going through the perimenopause, our kids are going through their teens. So that is quite a potent hormonal mix. So with perimenopause, you may have symptoms. There's the anxiety and depression, mood symptoms. There's the memory loss and brain fog and just being confused. And for me, it was not being able to make decisions as efficiently and effectively as you could before. And of course, in general practice, when you've only got 10 minutes a patient, and in many high level careers, you've got to make decisions quickly, and you've got to make the right ones. So decision making goes out the door. There's the thing is, you don't recognize it. Most people don't recognize it as being perimenopause until they start having hot flushes or night sweats, because those are the obvious ones. But the insomnia can last for years before then. And that insomnia, it's really important to recognize the impact that has on us during the day. And therefore that has a big impact on us at work. And so studies have shown that 80% of women have symptoms in the perimenopause that are quite debilitating. 80% of women find that it impacts them at work. And so the work situation's very important. And then, so with the hot flushes, you also get hair loss, you get your hair falling out, you get your skin going coarser, you get the weight gain. That's partly to do with insulin resistance or pre-diabetes, as Katie's experienced with her diabetes. And then there's the unmentionable. So there's lack of libido and vaginal dryness. And the vaginal dryness is so painful. It was so good that this was covered in Davina McCall's talk yesterday, because last week, because we so rarely actually talk about it. You know, it's such a difficult thing to talk about. But the vaginal dryness, as they were saying, it's easily resolved, even within the NHS. So that vaginal gel or vaginal pessaries are very low risk. You can even, you know, if you've got active breast cancer or recent breast cancer, then I wouldn't use them. But apart from that, if you've got distantly past breast cancer, even those people can use them. But there is a risk. But you've got to say that whenever we open our mouths as doctors.
Everything's got a risk.
There's a risk.
Walking out your front door carries a risk.
Yeah. And pivotal is understanding, that it isn't just one hormone system. So it's not just about estrogen and progesterone. It's also about thyroid. It's about the adrenal glands. It's about the insulin resistance. It's about gut health. These will all impact your menopause symptoms. Menopause itself is just the ceasing of your periods. And if you are eating and living perfectly, then you don't experience any. It really comes down to that. You don't have to go through symptoms. So with the vaginal symptoms, they are so debilitating and they break up marriages. Highest age for having divorce or separation is 45 to 55 for women. Highest age of suicide is 45 to 55. It's debilitating. It's really affecting us. In terms of testing, let's put the NHS hat on for a moment. We are told as GPs, you don't test for menopause because it's a clinical diagnosis. Okay, you don't need to test. It's true, you don't need to test if you're using the NHS approach to treating because it's not very personalised. But the menopause is diagnosed as being a year after, as I said, it's diagnosed when you're a year past your last period. It doesn't need blood tests for that unless you're under 40. So if you're under 40 and you start having problems, then you go to the GP and they will do tests to check because it's a premature menopause. Really important if you have an early menopause, really important to have HRT or preferably bioidentical HRT because of the impact on your bone and cardiovascular and dementia risks if you have your menopause before the age of 40. So it's really even more important to have some treatment then. But, that's the NHS hat where it's a prescription pad and no time to explain the degree of lifestyle change that you need to actually change this around. You can't do that in 10 minutes. You can't even start talking about diet and microbiome in 10 minutes. So with my NHS hat, I prescribe the best HRT that I can, which is estrogel or Sandrina. That's 2 types of estrogen gel or patches, and Utrogestan. Now, another thing about perimenopause, Jen was talking about perimenopause being about when your estrogen levels drop. In actual fact, your estrogen levels go haywire. They can go up and down, and you then get estrogen dominance. And when you go through menopause, yes, your estrogen levels drop, but your progesterone levels drop much more.
Yeah, they're actually the highest. They're actually the highest they will be, aren't they? In relation to progesterone over that period.
Yeah. And the thing is that the medical profession ignores the progesterone because it doesn't count, because they're only looking at the hot flushes. They're not looking at the holistic approach to menopause, if that makes sense. So we're just looking at estrogen, and the reason why they give you a progestogen in the NHS is usually a progestogen, which is an artificial pharmaceutical that's a bit like a progesterone. The reason they give you that is because they want to stop your endometrium proliferating. So in the 50s, when they started using the pill and HRT, they used estrogen without progesterone, and people developed endometrial cancer because estrogen that's not being opposed by progesterone or a progestogen, over the lining of the womb thickens and you get endometrial cancer. So that's why anybody who's still got a womb, they give you traditionally a tablet that's got estrogen and progestogen in, an artificial progesterone-like substance. But that doesn't improve your symptoms the same way as progesterone does. So if you are needing contraception, the best thing is a Mirena type, so a hormone-releasing coil and an estrogen patch or cream. So one of the most important things is you shouldn't take estrogen orally if you can help it. Unlike when we're on the pill and we're sort of taking it orally. Estrogen orally increases the risk of a deep vein thrombosis. And that's why even within the NHS, we do have access to these creams and patches, which makes it better. There are still doctors who prescribe estrogen as tablets because it's cheaper. And I've even got one private patient who insists on her estrogen being as a tablet rather than as a cream, no matter how much I try to persuade her. So what I would recommend if you've had a hysterectomy is try and get some progesterone, but you won't get it from the GP, basically. So that's complicated, I know, but it is complicated, and that's why I have a whole course on this and a year-long membership program, because
which we'll put all the details on.
Understand so much more than is normal, you know.
And it's so individual, isn't it, Ali? Like everyone's experience is so individual. Because I have women that will come to me and they'll just have like excruciating joint pain that has literally come from nowhere overnight, where they almost wake up and feel like they've aged a decade and, you know, can't understand it. And pelvic floor as well, from a health perspective as women, you know, the changes in the estrogen levels can play havoc around the pelvic floor area. And we don't talk about things like this. If anything, I think sometimes women laugh about it and joke about the fact that we can't jump on trampolines, but there are things that we can do to kind of support that health as well, so that we feel strong and confident in that area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And did you know there's something called key in the door syndrome?
No.
So, you know, I'm
excited.
You put your key in the door, and you've not really felt like you needed the loo while you were driving home, but the minute you got the key in the door, all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. And, it's
you think one step forward, it's like crap.
It's urgent confidence. So I actually struggle with that, and I've had to see a pelvic floor specialist with that, and I've been on a course to support me with that as well, which I'm happy to talk about, because I've had real issues with that, and I didn't know that was what they called it.
Key in the door syndrome. I spent 12 years working in an award-winning urogynecology clinic, so with prolapse and pelvic floor situations and atrophic vaginitis. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
On the going when you touched on it just now, like the vaginal, like the dryness and libido, because that's another, you know, that's a big thing, isn't it? Because when, again, at that age, and a lot of time you've got littlies or kids who are teens and it's busy jobs, and it's sort of that can affect libido. So again, it's a mix of where that's coming from. Am I knackered from work and juggling everything, or is it and like Katie, if you don't mind, Andrea, what was your experience? Did you notice any difference on that, which you put down to work and stress?
Yeah, I mean, originally I thought it was all work and stress. so generally, and also I was possibly more advantageous, although again not undiagnosed properly with anything particularly. But I always had very regular periods. I appear to have only about half of the symptoms, and most of mine are emotional. I have no particular issues with my libido or anything else. I don't seem to be bothered by it, but maybe that's just me, you know. But I would say that the biggest the biggest problem is when you run a business, when, you know, from my perspective, when you're trying to juggle all these things, is there is no bloody time to listen to yourself, let alone go and do all the research. There is no time. I don't have, and it's so complicated. I mean, I've got a question right now because you just told me I'm likely postmenopausal. Now I'm going, so does that mean I don't need HRT, or I don't need support, or am I done? I don't, because nobody explains any of this stuff. Nobody that, or if you go online, it's so damn confusing, and I haven't got time. I have not got time because I'm running all the time, 100 miles an hour. My children are grown up, so I've got no excuse, but I'm still busy. I'm still busy. And I think for a lot of women who are, you know, trying to further their careers or run a business, or do a million things at the same time, and bring up children and run a household and all these things that, as you rightly say, Em, we're trying to do, and right at the peak of our careers often. So I'm now in demand to go and speak here or do this. Crippling anxiety is not what I need when I get up on stage right now. I don't need this stuff. And I don't have time to go wade through so much conflicting, and I said really conflicting advice, you know. So I have not asked because I don't know what I'm asking.
What's your advice on that, Ali?
Absolutely. It's challenging, and this is why women really want a quick fix. But I've got lots of people want to just have bioidentical hormone therapy, but I won't give them just bioidentical hormone therapy. Nice to see you, Alison, by the way. Thank you for that. I won't just give them bioidentical hormone therapy. I want to find out if their thyroid gland and their adrenal gland are also contributing to their adrenal fatigue and lack of libido. And I also want to help them understand that going gluten-free is key. You can't go through menopause and expect to not have symptoms if you don't go gluten-free, and do a lot of other things to improve your diet. Weight training, like you're doing, like Jem was talking about, there are certain exercises that are really good for hormone balance. Weights are really important because you're lacking testosterone as well. Your testosterone is through your boots. Katy, as somebody who's postmenopausal, I would still recommend you consider HRT as natural as you can. So NHS, I would go with one of the ones I said, or if you want to go privately and go with the bioidentical, it's more fine-tuned, but you can stay on bioidentical hormone therapy or HRT into your 90s if you want to. It's your choice. We're all at risk of breast cancer, but there is the other big elephant in the room is the studies that were shown that were done in 2001, I think, the Women's Health Initiative, which led to a whole generation of women being misserved and being afraid to prescribe to have HRT. But not only that, doctors were told not to prescribe HRT. We were told not to prescribe HRT full stop. We were told at the most to put people on it for 2 years, and that we were so hard trained to do that after that study, that now there are still doctors who are saying, no, you can only have it for 2 years. Or they can say, no, you're premenopausal, you don't need it yet, which isn't true. So
I work with a GP, Ali, and she is probably about 3 years in perimenopause, and she's really struggling. And I keep saying to her, will you consider HRT? She said, I will, but I only want to take it for 5 years. And she's got to come around when she's done her own research, and she's so busy, working mum, and it really saddens me to see her struggling at the moment as well.
So it's not just GPs disadvantaging the women who go to them, it's GPs disadvantaging themselves as well, because they don't realize that their education is limited. Everybody's education is limited because we can't know everything. And there is so much you need to know as a GP, because I'm a GP 2 days a week. I'm a functional medicine and menopause doctor 3 days a week. Most of that is online, and most of that is admin setting up my courses. But so I have my foot in two camps, if you like. And with the functional medicine and bioidentical hormone therapy, I have enough time to explain to people. But the advantage of doing online courses is that you can leverage your time. So it's not worth their time or my time for me to spend the educational piece working one-on-one with people. It's much better to be for them to watch my educational talks and webinars on my course and then ask me questions at the Q&A. You know, this is much more efficient, much more effective. And then they come to me with questions, not the questions that I've already answered, if that makes sense. And I also have a webinar once a month called Let's Talk Menopause as well, which people can ask questions.
That's great. Quite often it's the educational piece that people are missing. And actually, once, like Katy said, actually somebody to give Katy the information so you don't have to trawl through the internet, and then you can pick what's right for you with your symptoms, and then together build a lifestyle that helps you mitigate these symptoms so you can feel full of energy. So you're not going to go on stage with that anxiety, to help you live the life that you should be living now, feeling flying when you're, in your prime.
Yeah, I also think there's a bit like casting my man back 22 years, but it's a bit like the breastfeeding bottle debate. The HRT and even the bioidentical and even the homeopathic, there are really those staunch vocal people who say don't do any of this, you should just this is natural, this is nature's way. And then you've got the other side, and it's almost like there's a frowned upon view that if you take HRT that you are bottle feeding, basically. You're not doing the best.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting analogy. That is so interesting.
And I felt like, oh my god, I'm not doing the right thing. It's exactly the same as I did. I thought, I feel just like when I was breastfeeding and then bottle feeding my babies. And I think there's that, which is a real problem, because there's just the problem with just trawling online, as my doctor recommended, has left me completely conflicted and utterly confused, because I don't know which way. But I also think Davina McCall's program brought up something really interesting, which is this is not education for today. My daughter is 22 years old. She hasn't been told about this. Now, obviously, I'm doing my best to help her in my confused state. But if we do not teach our girls this, how the hell are they going to recognize that they are perimenopausal? And so I've got more vocal, although this is my first proper outing at it, because I'm thinking we need to drive education for the women and young women coming up so that they can see where they are and seek help instead of suffering.
100%. It starts at puberty. Educating children around puberty about the changes in their body, and actually from a woman's perspective to start tuning into your cycle, because as a girl you can really benefit from certain phases in your cycle. When you actually know it's a really good time maybe for you to be visible in the world. When you are coming up to ovulation, you're going to be shining. Whereas when you're due on your period a little bit before, in that late luteal phase, you might want to retreat more. It becomes more like winter. I talk about the seasons. So I very much, Katy,
I want to kill someone.
Try and work with women to educate them around their cycles before they get to the perimenopause state and menopause, because I feel it helps that transition, because they already understand their body. They're already in tune with it. They pick up their symptoms before, and they're hopefully not exasperated because they've been managing them pre they get into that stage. So absolutely education. And your analogy of the bottle feeding babies, I love it. I have one that's around childbirth, and I say you don't get a medal if you push out a baby without painkillers than if you have gas and air and all the drugs. It's exactly the same.
It is funny. When I had my first one, I had this big Aussie guy friend of ours before I went in, just said, I know what you're like, don't be a martyr, take the fucking drugs. And I was like, went in there and I was like determined to have like a water birth, and then we hadn't realized Raph had flipped on his back and they didn't clock it. So the pain was, exactly. And in my head, all I could hear was his voice, and I just went, fuck it. Just take the drugs. You know what I mean? It's like there's no judgment when you have a baby. No one goes, oh, well, mine's better than yours because I pushed it out on gas and air and you had it cut out. And you know what I mean? It's sort of, and the same with bottle or breast. So it's the same with HRT. I take supplements. It's not a competition.
It's not, and it's your body, and you have the right to do whatever you choose to make you live the best life you can. Because let's face it, we're not on this planet for a long time. So the time that we are here, we should live in our best, live our best version of ourselves, however that is, safely and, within our own choices, and not judge anyone.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying, Jem, about educating girls as well, because, of course, osteoporosis, we build up our best bone density when we're a teenager. But if you're like me and were bullied at school for being bad at sports, it's very difficult to actually get into the habit of a really good exercise program.
Yeah, and a lot of girls
as well. We need to start in our teens,
Yeah, and a lot of girls can lose their confidence when they are going through puberty and their hips widen, they get the Q angle more, they become a little bit more ganglion-like, they don't know how to quite move their body. That's when we kind of need to kick in and train our girls about this stage and support them so they feel confident in moving and know it's a transitional period, just like menopause, and it's a natural stage that they'll move through safely. But yeah, absolutely, education is so powerful, because if we've got that knowledge, we don't feel like we've been hit by a bus. We understand what's coming. We know when to go for help.
You're suddenly hit. I know so many friends who are, late 30s or 40s who are suddenly going, oh, we need to exercise. We need to do weights. We need to, who have never done it before. Yeah. And they need, they go, oh, I'm noticing like I'm like this on week 1 of my cycle and week 2, and you're like, you shouldn't be doing that in your 40s. You shouldn't be educating. But I mean, that's just how we are.
Absolutely. If you're kicking into your 40s and you've not done it, it's great that you're wanting to do it in your 40s, because it's never too late. It's never too late to start moving, and you start at a pace and weight and resistance that's right for you. But obviously, if you go into it when your body is more optimized to build lean muscle, it becomes easier to maintain, and you've already got those lifestyle habits. Ali was talking about gut health. Timing around your training is so important, with nutrients, right nutrients. Protein is really important. Post-workout, post-menopausal women need 40 grams of protein after a workout. Otherwise, the body stays in this catabolic state. It doesn't rebuild the muscles. So sensible eating, again, eating carbohydrates earlier throughout the day rather than loading them towards the back end of the day, in and around training. Lots of colourful vegetables. It's the whole big picture. Exercise is one part of it. Mental health is one part of it. Managing the hormones. It's a big piece. It's a big lifestyle piece.
Yeah. And on the supplements, so Ali, what sort of, don't know if people are sort of, as Katy said, the anxiety side of things, when they start, what are sort of the supplements that people should look into? Because as you said, there's like Chinese, there's Indian, there's vitamins, there's a kind of minefield, and sometimes a lot of them don't mix together well. So what's your advice on choosing the right supplement?
Well, with supplements, I only work with the very best brands, because the difference in quality is so enormous. So there are whole lines that have had to be taken off the shelves, even in the UK, because of contamination. And they analysed some in America, and they didn't have. They analysed a lot of different brands, and they found they didn't have what they said on the bottle. So I only use pharmaceutical grade supplements. So pivotal with sorting out perimenopause and adrenal fatigue and things is advanced cellular nutrition. So you've got really advanced levels of every multivitamin, every vitamin and mineral in there, and the minerals have to be chelated to an amino acid or you won't absorb them. So it really needs to be high level. So I take 16 tablets in the morning and 8 at night. Wow. And that's my nutritional supplement regime, and has been since 2008. And that's what's kept me going. That's been a big part in me not getting any hot flushes, the anxiety being really the only perimenopausal symptom that I've had. I'm now on a mood one from the same company, which has ashwagandha in, among other things. So there are some supplement brands that combine the best of evidence-based traditional herbal medicine with nutritional medicine, and that's the ones to go for. Really, that's what I would recommend. And so taking the right supplements is key. And also the mindset. I mean, we haven't really touched, apart from Katy talking about how yoga has helped her. For me, the energy healing and meditation that I do every morning has been key. And because most people going through perimenopause are in a bit of an anxious state and going through adrenal fatigue at the same time, they tend not to recognize the importance of stopping, pausing, and breathing. And one of the things that I've spotted about smoking is that when you smoke, you take a deep breath, because I gave up when I was 28. You take a deep breath, and that, just the process of taking a deep breath is therapeutic in itself, even without the drug.
Yeah.
And once we quit smoking, we never take a breathe break with coffee, do we? And that's what we need to do. So if we can start to just take 3 deep breaths before every meal, when you first wake up in the morning, whenever you're feeling anxious, and as you're trying to go off to sleep at night, that does wonders for repositioning your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems and getting things back on track again. And it's really, it's crucial. It's the first step of my 7-step system. It's so important. And yet I don't have time to even mention it in general practice. Says it all, really, doesn't it?
It is. It's crazy, isn't it? The breathing and the walking, and like Jem, for you on that, they're just the mental health side of perimenopause, which is huge. The advice you give your clients on that side.
On the mental side, yeah, so I suppose I'm a trained Pilates instructor as well. So I try to dial in for them Pilates sessions, and I get them to do them in the evening. Very similar to Ali, most of my clients will have a body scan that I've recorded that they can just do in bed to help calm them down. And for the mental side, I do look at supplements. So I will recommend, and then clients need to go and speak to their GPs about it, but adaptogen, so as Ali mentioned, like ashwagandha, magnesium, to help potentially if they are feeling, if clients are tracking, they might find that there's certain points where they feel that anxiety, and once we see those cycles, those patterns over a period of months, we can start to see it is cycle related. So yeah, breath work, getting outdoors in nature as well. So I think being outdoors in nature is a really big calming influence, grounding yourself. So, taking your shoes off, getting onto the grass is really good. Obviously, I'm always going to be an advocate of high intense workouts and lifting weights, but in balance. They don't need to be done all the time. So post-menopausal women, I would put them on a 2-week training program where we're working hard, and then a 1-week deload, so they're on a 3-week cycle. And that balances it out mentally as well for them, so they know they've got this rest and recovery. And I also am a big advocate of the moon. Again, I think in postmenopausal women, I think the moon acts as a really massive anchor to help women who then have lost the absence of that cyclical living, and it can give them that opportunity to release and then to kind of like set intentions too. So it's bringing all those assets together.
Yeah. Moon's amazing, isn't it? Even my husband comes out now because my 2 little girls, like one of them is so moon affected, and he's not, and I'm like, literally every time it's bang on full moon, and she just goes crazy. She's really? Like possessed for about 3 days and won't sleep, and will come up at night, and it's literally, but it's that education, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm probably the same, but never picked up on it until recently, but she is, and I'm like, well, actually I'm the same, because I'm a bit like around that time. So that education is something, because I think it'll help her when she's aware of it growing up to know what's but what about you, Katy? Sorry, I digress there into moon craziness. What are your sort of go-tos?
So the smartest thing I think I did for my mental health, I walk a lot because I've got 2 border collies, and damn, they need walking. So I'm with you on the nature front. But the other thing I think as a businesswoman I did was I told people, and I talked to them about my feelings, which is slightly uncomfortable in the professional world. But I have the most incredibly supportive husband who has educated himself alongside me and just lets me blurt at him when I'm feeling without finding solutions and sticking plasters all over me. He just lets me blurt, or, you know, we'll sleep with the air conditioning turned up with his socks on because he's frozen to death. But also my staff and my team. So I'm obviously dealing with people who are a lot younger than me, or working with people who are a lot younger than me. But they have been amazing. And my leadership team, which is a man and a woman, have both been utterly fantastic. And as soon as I have to flag it, they wouldn't be that, because it's a professional relationship. But as soon as I say, this is how I'm feeling, they're really good at picking up around me. So several times in the last year, I've said, I'm overwhelmed. And they've said, right, what have you got on this afternoon? We'll take this off you if it's urgent. Shut down, go do something else. And it has been absolutely fantastic. So for mental well-being, from my perspective, telling other people and being more open about the fact that I might be in this particular state has been really good. It's been really good, because that moment where you feel particularly the edge of despair, where, you know, I call it my black toad. I can feel them squatting in the corner, and I can see it over there, just there. And I'm going, oh God, I can feel this coming. Just being able to say to my husband, this is how I'm feeling. I know, I call it the black toad is here, blah, 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 blah. And it's almost like saying, this isn't me, this is the menopause. And I'm able to kind of anthropomorphize, you know what I mean? Turn it into a thing, a human being, give it a personality of its own, and say, it's that. Yeah. And then what happens is my mind doesn't escalate it. It doesn't stop me feeling the way I do, but I'm not escalating that into, oh my God, my life is upside down, I can't do this, and I'm crap at that. And because otherwise I will escalate, because that's what we do. All human beings do that, is think everybody hates me. You're looking at people through a Zoom call every morning on my team calls and thinking, they're not acknowledging me, are they listening to me? They must think I'm an idiot. You know, it's because that's the menopause talking, not me. So yeah. I kind of make it into another being, and it's those things have really, really helped. And I think you can't underestimate the need to talk about this, and without being all woke, and because I'm not millennial anyway. So. But actually, it's really good sometimes just to say, look, I'm just not feeling me. I'm just not me today. I'm just, I feel like I want to cry. I'm not crying, but I feel like I want to cry.
Yeah, and sometimes you wish you could cry. So they're going, but like Cameron Diaz in The Holiday, so they're going, cry. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can't release that emotion. But it does mean that I'll feel that I'm being irrational. And it's lovely, because then other people are saying, no, that's fine. And I'm able to sense check decisions I'm making around the business, around my life, around what I do that day with people around me. And it just gives me that safety net. That I think the worst bit about the menopause is that, which is I think what we've all really been talking about, which is that bit, which is when it's unrecognized. When you don't know why you're feeling the way you're feeling, you can't tell, because there's so many symptoms. Look at all the ones we've listed, and I bet we haven't listed half of them.
No, we haven't. Over 100.
Yeah, exactly. How do you know that this is the menopause and not you just being a complete flake? You know, how do you know that this is the menopause and not the fact that you've got something else wrong with you and you need to go see the doctor? You know, it's so confusing that I think that just being able to talk it through with people helps you rationalize what you need to do next, helps you understand what you need to do next. And I think that is definitely part of it. This TV programs, things like this, where people are getting used to hearing the language, it gives us the voice we need to feel that we can talk to people about it.
And know that you're not weird and on your own. Because it was a few months ago, someone said, because I was ranting, so are you sure you're not perimenopause? And I'm like, I'm 43, and mum had menopause, you know, she went through, I think, 52. And I'm like, but as you said, Ali, it can be 10 years before. And actually the more, and one, as you said, Katie, that going on a Zoom call, one of the big things with me was, well, no one asked me how I am. It's my business. Why should anyone ask me how I am? You know what I mean? It's sort of when you read it back to you going, well, you know, I could sit in a hole and not come out for 6 months. Would anyone notice? They don't give a shit. It's like the thoughts that go on, you just
Oh,
sound
yes.
ridiculous, and you're
Yes,
like,
a
well,
monkey
I'm just
mind.
being a twat. But
Worrying
actually,
about
when you're
everything.
able to, yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, Ali? You go.
Yeah, the worrying about everything, every little thing. You know, worrying about the decisions my kids have been making, and worrying all night if you're not careful. And so you start learning the hypnosis and energy healing that gets you back to sleep again. It's insane. Yeah. I've got a webinar coming up on Thursday called Menopausal Hormone Therapy, Myths, Methods and Magic, in which I'm going to actually be shedding some light on the difference between the different sorts of HRT and why there are those differences in opinion about them as well.
Cool. Well, we'll share. I just noticed we've done an hour already. We could do 5,000 hours on this, but we'll share all your data, your info. So, and put it in like the Sistr group if you've got any courses or things, because everyone's always looking. Because I'm definitely gonna look it up more, as in what you guys are up to, and I'm sure Katy will be. Now that that's
Katy's doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think Katy, you sound like you've done a great job to navigate how you've managed to navigate it over the last few years and carry on doing what you do at work and be so open about it. I think all credit to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. But do you know what? I'm going to end it there. But thank you very much for coming on, you guys. And I'm sure there'll be people hunting you down and stalking you out. But yeah, just everyone keep talking.
Keep talking.
About it.
Keep talking.
Yeah, and to your partners as well. I think, as you touched on, Katy, that's huge. It's that, you know, just vocalizing it and saying, I don't want to be fixed. I don't want a solution. I'm just in like the black toad is there, the crazy. So just
I'm taking that analogy. I love that analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Own the toad. So yeah, cool.